Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Joy said, my name is Vinay Nagpal. I'm glad to be here with you today, see some familiar faces. Don't mean to keep you for too long from the great social that Ben and team have planned. When I was asked to come and give a presentation, I was thinking about what would be a great topic when it comes to, the product model that ConnectBase has, the way Ben and his team have grown the company, and really what my background is, which is really in a nutshell, a combination of data centers, terrestrial fiber, subsea, and internet exchange points. The IG group that I formed about 8 years back is focused on really doing kind of consulting advisory work for the convergence of data center, subsea, and terrestrial fiber. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And most importantly, when it comes to kind of personal background is data centers. I've been in the data center industry for about 30 years. And yes, I'm going to age myself pretty quickly when I say that. And I think the entire paradigm of connectivity has evolved in such a significant way when it comes to data centers. And I'll touch upon that a little bit during my presentation. But as I mentioned earlier, so our group offers consultancy advisory services focused on convergence of data centers, subsea, terrestrial fiber. We work very closely with data center operators worldwide, subsea operators, terrestrial fiber companies, and internet exchange points. We have a media side of the business, which is separated out into a separate company now, which is Interglobix. Some of you may be familiar with our publication. It's a quarterly publication on, again, data centers, subsea, terrestrial fiber, and we offer some very focused event correlation, curation, and thought leadership, blogs, and such digital media services. The focus of my conversation today is going to be about Virginia's growing digital infrastructure. As many of you may know, Virginia is the leading data center market globally, and the evolution that has happened in the state of Virginia has been absolutely significant when it comes to the growth of data centers. I've personally lived there for the last 25 years, and the two things that I tell people have been constant there is data center construction and splice trucks. So much so, some of you may be familiar that we ran out of easement in some of the roads now, and there's fiber that's been constructed into the median. So just by some virtue of some numbers, as the world's largest data center market, what does that mean? There are over 600 data centers in Virginia across 22 markets. Yes, everyone thinks about Virginia and Loudoun County and Northern Virginia, which of course is the leading data center market globally. I don't think there's any hyperscaler, retail data center provider or a wholesale data center provider that's not in that market. 35% of world's hyperscale data centers exist there. And I was talking to my associates at Dominion Energy, and one of their key guys works with me on the Northern Virginia Technology Council board, and he was telling me that data centers across Virginia consume 33.8 million megawatt hours of electricity. So that's roughly more than a quarter of the state's electricity, if you put it in perspective. And that's pretty significant when we look at the industry and what that means, because across the US, currently the data center industry consumes 4 to 5% of the electricity, which is expected to grow to around 7 to 12% by 2028. And that's really significant when you think of what's happening with AI in terms of the compute power shrinking and the energy utilization going up, the energy demands of the infrastructure going up. And what that also means along with it is there's a lot more heat dissipated. You need more newer, innovative cooling technology, whether it's liquid to the chip, whether it's rear door heat exchangers, and that also is very constantly evolving. But at the same time, there is a big focus from an industry perspective on smarter grid planning, on sustainable design and efficient cooling. Renewable procurement is another big area that's there. And of course, policy framework that are supporting equitable growth across the Commonwealth. Northern Virginia in particular, sort of diving it a little bit further, as I mentioned earlier, over 200 data centers within Loudoun County alone, and another 117 under development. So a lot of these logos that you see, As I said, I moved there 25 years back from Toronto, and I personally have witnessed a complete transformation of the area from like farmland to these data centers, and these are huge, humongous campuses that are being built now. So 43 million square feet, another 6 million in development, in various different stages of development. And back to the Dominion conversation I was talking about earlier, and roughly there is over 4 megawatts of power behind the meter today. And that equates to power that's generated by 2 to 3 nuclear plants, or enough power to basically run 2.8 million homes. So that should give you a perspective into the impact that data centers have in the region. And as I mentioned earlier in my opening remarks, data centers cannot and do not exist in a silo. They have to be highly connected. And of course, Northern Virginia is one of the leading hubs when it comes to connectivity. In particular, DC2, which again is known by its address, 21715 Filigree Court, is one of the most interconnected buildings on Earth. There are upwards of 350 carriers that are interconnecting, exchanging traffic with each other. And of course, there is internet exchange point that's there as well in the region. Very recently, about, I would say, roughly around 7+ years back, which is not a lot of time, is when the first subsea cables landed in Virginia, which was in Virginia Beach, the Maria cable. So now there are 3 operational subsea cables for international traffic, Maria, Bruce, and Dunant. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But I want to take your attention to away from Northern Virginia. Henrico County, which is in Richmond, has been the epicenter for the Central Virginia region. That region has been growing on a very steady pace. I was involved there with QTS data centers in co-founding the NAP. NAP is a network access point, which is, again, where multiple networks come and converge with each other. And when I say multiple networks, that's a combination of dark fiber, access providers, metro networks, long haul, and internet exchange points. And currently, that region has several data centers that are under development, and also in the context of internet exchange points, DE-CIX, and we have some of the team members from here deployed a DE-CIX internet exchange point in Richmond, which is a distributed IX, which connects the QTS Richmond NAP to another data center in Ashland, to a third data center. And by virtue of this distributed architecture, multiple networks can exchange traffic with each other and take advantage of that ecosystem. Hampton Roads is where the subsea cables land in Virginia Beach, which started with one beach manhole and a single location where these high-capacity cables are landing, which is where we have the cable landing station, the beach manhole, and the backhaul. And now there is a second location in Sandbridge that's currently under development to accommodate 4 new subsea cables. So really the capacity is doubling as we speak. The I-95 corridor, really looking at Northern Virginia down to Richmond area, is one that's really interesting one, where in a very short period of time, there is upwards of $100 billion of new investment happening. And that investment is, again, a combination of data centers, subsea, and terrestrial fiber. Just to put it in perspective, this year alone, there is 720 megawatts of data center capacity that has been already built across the I-95 corridor, which, again, is equivalent to providing electricity to 500,000 homes. And 90% of that capacity is leased within the first 6 months. So it gives you a perspective on the demand side, that the demand is such that more and more development is happening down south from Northern Virginia region, and that trend will continue to grow over the next several years. And that region is highlighted here in the picture as well. I mentioned about the evolution of the greater Richmond region. So really there are 3 big things that happened there. One was the NAP, which I mentioned earlier, and you see many of these logos here are going to be very familiar. And a lot of these companies have been either there or have really extended out their network to have a presence at the NAP. And what that really gives is an ecosystem to that region as a network access point to connect with each other. The Internet Ecosystem Innovation Committee was founded in 2019. Again, I was fortunate enough to be a founding member, and that's chaired by Dr. Vint Cerf. Again, some of you may be familiar. Vint Cerf is one of the founding fathers of the internet. He invented the TCP/IP protocol 50 years back, which is obviously how the internet works. And as the chairman, his mantra, his goal has been very simple, which is diversification of the internet and creating more interconnection hubs. So he's been an evangelist, to work with us on this initiative, and we have a global committee that's formed. And then subsequently in 2021, DE-CIX, which is the leading global internet exchange platform, came to Richmond region, deployed their platform in a completely open architecture across multiple data centers, and we are looking at expanding that as well. Talking a little bit more about subsea cables. So I mentioned Maria was the first subsea cable, which, by the way, was an initiative between Microsoft, Facebook, or now Meta, and Telsius. My previous company was DuPont Fabros Technology, and we were very actively working with Microsoft and Facebook. And when Hurricane Sandy had hit the New York, Long Island region, that's when the hyperscalers started looking at a diverse landing point on the East Coast, and hence Virginia Beach happened. And that cable, by the way, to put it in perspective, when it was deployed initially, its capacity was 160 terabits per second. And that equates to 8 times the Library of Congress being sent across the Atlantic Ocean in 1 second. Subsequently, that was upgraded to 200 terabits per second, and that is every single movie in every language made in 4K to be transmitted across the Atlantic in 42 seconds. So just imagine in terms of the capacity, which is just unprecedented. And what that really means is it's not just data going from point A to point B. When that data, that amount of data is landing on both ends of the ocean, it has to go somewhere. It has to propagate from there. And that's where the terrestrial fiber comes in, the internet exchange points come in. And of course, along the way, there is development of more ecosystems and local communities as well. The second cable was BRUSA, which went from Virginia Beach to Brazil with a couple of branching units. And subsequently, the third one was in 2018, which was the Dunant cable owned and operated by Google going from Virginia Beach to France. And there's, of course, a lot of swaps that have happened on those fiber pairs, and different hyperscalers and other data center companies are active participants there as well. Bringing back our attention to the Richmond-Hampton Roads mega region. So what you see here is a very, very conscious, deliberate attempt in putting together the infrastructure across Richmond, across Hampton Roads in terms of subsea cables, data centers, terrestrial fiber, what that entire infrastructure looks like. There was a team that was put in place to pull this together, and we put together a 10-point strategic plan, which was then used by local communities to kind of grow from that infrastructure and how they could truly leverage that. So I have a copy of that in case any of you are interested. I'm happy to hand out that map, what you're seeing in print, and I have a copy of the 10-point strategic plan as well. But in essence, since then, I talked about the $100 billion plus investment. So I'm not talking about Northern Virginia at all at this point in time. It's all going down south from Northern Virginia to Richmond and that region. And that, again, is new data center construction, diverse fiber routes that have been put in place, new subsea cable landing points, and this growth will continue to propel over the next several years, because what's happening now is that the local communities in the region are starting to take advantage. And of course, when it comes to data center, there are major data center projects underway, both across the I-95 corridor and in the greater Richmond region as well. So in essence, Virginia definitely continues to be the leading data center market. Connectivity is absolutely essential in growing that further and propelling that growth to the next phase. And it's currently 100 plus billion. The last number I heard was over 120 billion actually. And that again will will grow further, and that's where the opportunity is in terms of different ecosystems being developed and as the digital infrastructure evolves. The team that's working on the Richmond-Hampton Roads megaregion project is basically creating what they're calling as a blueprint of a global internet hub, and that's now being looked at by various different geographies around the world. And the vision that we have is that by 2035, that region will be an example, and it will stand out as the leading global internet hub around the world, which will be basically a combination of data centers, terrestrial fiber, subsea internet exchange point, and setting the standard for collaboration, connectivity, power, security, and data transformation. I'm happy to take any questions from the audience. And as Joy was mentioning earlier, I think you got to use the app to send your questions.
Here's a question for you.
Yes.
What is IG Group's place in this ecosystem?
Sorry, say that again.
What is IG Group's place in this ecosystem?
IG Groups, yeah, we are involved. Thanks for that question. So we were the co-founders of the NAP in Richmond. We were involved in putting together the Internet Ecosystem Innovation Committee, and then very actively engaged in bringing DE-CIX to the region as a leading internet exchange point. Subsequent to that, the map that you just saw was put together. Our team was engaged in that initiative as well, and now we are working towards kind of enhancing that global internet hub initiative and growing that across multiple regions around the world.
Okay, here's another one. How are you solving scalable fiber connectivity to Ashburn?
Oh gosh, if there was an easy answer to that, that would be great. So I think there are multiple things happening at a county level. The government realizes, I mentioned earlier about fiber going to the median as opposed to having easements at the end of the road. So there is an initiative there that the county is much more mindful in terms of when it comes to, one is the approval process, then is seeing where the conduit systems are going. Third is the scalability of those conduit systems as well. If there are multiple projects that are underway in a specific geography, there is definitely a push for more collaboration, for having common conduit systems that can be leveraged across multiple projects as well.
Okay, and then are there any homes left in Northern Virginia? What does this do to the residential landscape?
Well, listen, I'll be very honest with you guys. None of this comes without challenges. None of this comes without pushback. There absolutely has been pushback from the neighborhoods. I myself live in Loudoun County, and yes, I will say that when I was buying my house, I did want to be away from the data centers, and rightfully so. I mean, that's obvious. But I think there's a fine line there. I think there is an element of really educating the residents, the common people, that data centers are not your enemies, they are your friends in terms of what they bring to enhancing the quality of your life. At the same time, on the other side, the industry is putting together very deliberate steps in terms of making sure the setbacks are proper, making sure that the berms are properly set up. So I think that's going to continue to happen. There is no silver lining. There's no single answer for that. As I said, we have seen some pushbacks. We have seen some projects even being canceled.
Okay, a couple of rapid fire questions, and then we'll let everyone go on to cocktail hour. What are the sources of power supporting the data center expansion in Virginia? Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about the importance of renewables, right? So gas-powered hydrogen is already happening in Loudoun County. In the Virginia Beach region, there is the largest wind farm that's been put in place in terms of the project that's there off the coast of Virginia Beach. And in various parts of the state, there are significant solar plants as well. Everyone likes to talk about SMRs and nuclear, and I do too, and I refrain from it deliberately because it's not a thing of the present. It's going to take a long time for something like that to truly come to fruition, but there is more near-term initiatives that are underway that are being implemented from an industry perspective as well. And also, I would say that very recently I was invited to attend a joint roundtable between the White House and Department of Energy. And really the key part of that conversation was, how do you curtail the load to the grid? And how do you push the industry at large
to be self-sufficient. And that doesn't mean that the utilities go away. It's got to be a combination, but to start being able to generate power on site is a humongous task in itself, let alone the mode of generation, but it is happening.
Wonderful. What percentage of the $100 billion digital infrastructure investment is being spent on digital twins, inventory management, GIS, et cetera?
Most of that is actually, at the moment, the numbers that I have, and it's been a couple of different sources who have given me that number. By the way, the 120 billion was one I was given 2 days back. That's been really in terms of land acquisition, data center development, new fiber routes coming in. So that's really kind of back of the napkin calculation based on that.
Great. And the final question, why do you need this in Virginia only? Why not think of a federation where the location doesn't matter? That could potentially help with scale.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, our company, we have so far done similar projects in 18 different countries, obviously not to the scale of what's happening in Virginia. I think Virginia definitely has a leg start. You may have noticed, and one of my initial slides, I had a term labeled there, May East, and some of you may be familiar with in Tyson's Corner, Boone Boulevard, when this all happened from a connectivity perspective, right? So Virginia has had its own kind of growth life cycle, right? There are other regions around the country, around the world that are growing as well. Virginia exceeds the next 6 markets combined together. I don't see that changing anytime soon, but having said that, we are working on projects as we speak in Malaysia and Indonesia, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So that growth, that development is going to happen. It's not something I would say is very unique or only for Virginia, but again, Virginia has had a head start, I would say.
Awesome. Let's give it up for Vinay. This was so insightful and interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.